Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining. Today we're talking about something that's becoming one of the most important geopolitical questions in Asia, and honestly, one of the biggest global strategic puzzles right now. Japan, China, Taiwan, and the United States, locked in a triangle of strategic interests, economic necessity, national identity, and rising uncertainty. And at the center of it all is Japan's new Prime Minister, Takaichi. She's already made headlines with her early diplomatic moves, her statements regarding Taiwan, and her clear shift toward a stronger national security posture. Her words have sparked support, controversy, concern, and curiosity, both inside Japan and worldwide. So today we'll look at a few key questions. Where do Japan-China relations stand right now? Why is Taiwan suddenly a defining issue? If a Taiwan contingency, or Taiwan emergency, happens, how would Japan respond? How would the world respond? What does China want from Japan? What does Japan want from China? And how do the United States and its Indo-Pacific strategy shape everything? Let's start with the current reality. Right now, Japan and China are economically intertwined, but strategically suspicious of each other. China remains Japan's largest trading partner, and Japanese companies are deeply connected to Chinese manufacturing and consumer markets. But at the same time, Japan has become increasingly vocal about security concerns, especially regarding the South China Sea, East China Sea, cyber intrusions, influence operations, and of course, Taiwan. When Prime Minister Takaichi said that a Taiwan emergency is effectively a Japan emergency, reactions came fast. Supporters inside and outside Japan said, "Yes, that's finally realism. Japan cannot pretend Taiwan is someone else's problem." Critics said she's provoking Beijing and destabilizing the region. China's official reaction was predictable: strong diplomatic protest, repeated warnings, and the message: Taiwan is a domestic issue. Japan must not interfere. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Japan doesn't have the luxury of ignoring Taiwan. Look at a map. Okinawa and Taiwan are not far. They sit inside the same strategic corridor. If Taiwan were ever taken by force, the first thing that changes is the balance of power in the entire Indo-Pacific. And Japan knows it, the United States knows it, and China knows they know it. So this isn't just politics, it's geography. Now let's go deeper. What happens if Taiwan actually becomes a conflict zone? There are three major layers: military, economic, and psychological. Militarily, Japan would be under enormous pressure, not necessarily to fight, but to support U.S. operations from bases in Okinawa, Kyushu, and possibly Honshu. Japan's military posture may stay legally defensive, but its role would be active: logistics, missile defense, surveillance, maritime support, and rear area security. Economically, the shock would be global. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's advanced semiconductors, including chips used in iPhones, defense systems, AI infrastructure, medical equipment, and automotive control units. So a disruption wouldn't just be a regional crisis. It would be a worldwide technological and economic earthquake. Psychologically, such a conflict would break decades of assumptions, especially in Japan, where many believe that economic interdependence alone could maintain peace. So if that happens, how does Japan respond? And how does the rest of the world react? The United States' position is relatively clear: protect regional stability, protect sea lanes, protect the rules-based order, and maintain deterrence against unilateral military change. Europe, especially the UK, France, Germany, would eventually align with the US stance, though more slowly and diplomatically. Southeast Asia would be cautious, balancing pragmatism with anxiety. South Korea would hesitate, then protect its economy and security interests. But what about China and Japan themselves? Let's break that down. China's message to Japan is basically, don't strengthen your military against us. Don't support Taiwan. Don't align too closely with the United States. China wants Japan to move towards strategic neutrality, ideally drifting away from the US-led alliance system and becoming a more autonomous actor in Asia. Japan's message to China is different. Respect international law. Don't use force. Stop military and economic coercion, and accept that Japan will defend its national interests. Japan doesn't want confrontation, but it no longer accepts a passive role. Now, can the relationship recover? Yes, but only under conditions. Japan will require transparency, predictability, and respect for international rules, especially regarding maritime zones, economic security, foreign influence, and Taiwan. China will require Japan to avoid supporting any Taiwanese independence movement and to limit military integration with U.S. regional planning. So what we're watching now is not just diplomacy, it's negotiation of a new order in Asia. And that brings us to the big question. Where does the United States fit into all of this? For Washington, Japan is the cornerstone of Indo-Pacific strategy, not just a partner, but a platform. Economic, diplomatic, technological, and military. Japan hosts U.S. forces, participates in Quad cooperation, coordinates sanctions policy, and increasingly plays a leadership role among democracies in the region. So the U.S. expectation is Japan will remain aligned with U.S. strategy. China's expectation is Japan will eventually choose distance from the United States. Japan's reality is it must balance security dependency, economic interdependence, geopolitical pressure, demographic challenges, and public opinion. So this isn't simply a rivalry, it's a symmetrical dilemma. China can't push Japan too far, because economic ties matter. Japan can't push China too far, because regional stability matters. The U.S. can't step back, because deterrence depends on commitment. We are entering an era where Japan is not just responding, but shaping regional policy. Prime Minister Takaichi's foreign diplomacy, her tone at APEC, and her early meetings with world leaders reflect a Japan that is more confident, more strategic, more vocal, and more aware that silence has consequences. Japan is no longer just reacting to events, it is preparing for scenarios and sending signals. Will relations between Japan and China improve? Only if both sides redefine expectations. Will Taiwan remain the most sensitive issue? Absolutely. Will the U.S. continue expecting Japan to stand firm? Without question. And will Asia become the center of global strategic competition? It already has. So the real question now is not, will Japan pick China or America? The real question is, how will Japan maintain stability, protect sovereignty, and lead in a world where choosing one fully never remains possible? The region is changing. The world is watching. And Japan, for the first time in decades, is not just participating, but positioning itself. Thanks for watching. If you found this valuable, share it and tell me in the comments. Do you believe Japan should take a stronger stance with the United States, a more balanced position with China, or move toward complete strategic independence? I'll see you in the next video.